All right, here's a couple of other elasticities you need to know about. Okay, and the first one, called the cross-price elasticity of demand. Now here what we're looking at is the formula, or the definition of it is really up here. The change in the quantity demanded of a particular product in relationship to the change in the price of another good, some other price. So here we're talking about how would the percentage change in coffee be affected if there was a change in the price of tea, or a change in the price of sugar, or the change in the price of some other good whose price affects the demand of this particular good. All right? We could write it like this: percentage change in the quantity demanded of good A divided by the percentage change in the price of a product, good B. Different prices for a different product than the quantity we're measuring there. So A is one good, B is another good. Now, if we do this percentage change, and here we can't look at the demand curve and we can't figure it out from the demand curve, because the change in the other price is actually going to shift the demand curve to another place, and it's not as likely we're going to be able to get this percentage change calculated in quite the same way. So you're not going to be asked to look at a demand curve and figure out the cross-price elasticity. Therefore, this is the definition you need to remember. But there's some implications of this. If the cross-price elasticity of demand is greater than 0, then that's saying there's a positive relationship between the change in the price of the other good and the quantity demanded of this good. All right, and that's going to mean that the two goods are defined and are indeed substitutes for each other. So if you're given a cross-price elasticity value that's greater than 0, you're going to know those two goods are substitutes. But if the cross-price elasticity of demand is less than 0, that value is lower than 0, then that's a negative relationship between the two, because if the price of another good goes up, that's going to mean the quantity demanded goes down for the first good A. And that negative relationship implies that the two goods are complements to each other. All right, so we could just go from knowledge of a cross-price elasticity to knowledge of whether the goods are substitutes or complements for each other. And so there's that relationship you need to know. Next, income elasticity of demand on the bottom. Now, income elasticity, again, elasticities are always going to be referring to percentage change divided by percentage change. And then it's just a question of what are you percentage changing? What's on the top? What's on the bottom? So now, income elasticity of demand, it's the demand that's on the top, percentage change in the quantity demanded of a good A. And we're going to put the percentage change in income now on the bottom. So we're going to ask, how sensitive is demand to changes in income levels of the community? And if we're talking, like we will now, we're talking not about individual demand, but market demand, then we're talking about not individual income, but we're talking about like community income. We're talking about the income of all of the households who are participating in purchasing a particular good. And so we're asking a question, this is harder to measure, but how would the income changes in that community of buyers, how would that affect their purchases of an individual good? And here too, IED can be positive or negative. Well, if it turns out that income elasticity is a positive number, that's what we mean by saying that a good is a normal good. Increased income causes an increase in the demand for the product. Well, that's normal good. And if an increase in if an increase in income causes a decrease in demand, we're going to have a negative IED, and that's going to be the definition or meaning. That means it's an inferior good. There's a negative relationship between income and demand for a product. All right, so that's it. We got 3 elasticities. The price elasticity of demand, which is looking at the own price of the good. Cross-price elasticity of demand, which is looking at changes in other prices of other goods affecting demand. And then we've got income elasticity of demand, which is how income in the community affects the demand for an individual product. And these last two allows us to distinguish substitutes from complements or inferior from normal goods. And that's how we're going to apply and use these.